The signal came from the edge of known space, weak and strange. Deep in the heart of the Nigma Empire, massive computers worked day and night to decode messages from across the galaxy. Most signals were boring reports from conquered worlds or pleas for mercy from dying civilizations. This one was different. Emperor Zaxthul stood 12 feet tall, his purple skin gleaming under the lights of his throne room. 4 arms crossed over his massive chest as he listened to the report. His species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had crushed every enemy, enslaved every useful race, and destroyed those who refused to serve. "What did you find, Commander Vex?" the Emperor asked. Commander Vex, a smaller Nigma with scars covering his face, held up a datapad. "My lord, we found signals from a new species. They call themselves humans. Their planet is called Earth." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Show me." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked peaceful and weak. Ships moved around it, but they were tiny compared to Nigma warships. "How many ships do they have?" the Emperor asked. "Our scouts count maybe 2,000 ships in their entire space fleet," Vex reported. "Most are small. They barely have faster-than-light travel. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours." The Emperor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Another easy conquest. Send word to the Third Fleet, tell them to prepare for invasion." "Yes, my lord. But there is something else." Vex looked nervous. "They sent us a message." "A message? What kind of message?" "A diplomatic one, my lord. They want to talk." The Emperor's laugh grew louder. "They want to talk? How amusing. Very well. Let them come. I could use some entertainment before we destroy them." 3 weeks later, a single human ship appeared at the edge of Nigma space. It was small and white, with strange symbols painted on its sides. The ship moved slowly, sending peaceful signals on all radio frequencies. The ship was called the Olive Branch. Inside, Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the captain's chair, looking out at the stars. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She had spent 30 years talking to different governments on Earth. Now she faced her greatest challenge. "Ambassador," said Captain Rodriguez, the ship's commander, "we're getting a response from the Nigma fleet." "Put it on screen," Chen said. A huge Nigma face appeared on the main screen. It was Commander Vex, though the humans did not know his name yet. His 4 eyes stared at them with curiosity and contempt. "Humans," Vex said in broken English. "You come to Nigma space, why?" Chen stood up and bowed slightly. "Greetings. I am Ambassador Chen Wei, representing the United Nations of Earth. We come in peace. We wish to establish friendly relations between our peoples." Vex's face showed something like amusement. "Friendly relations? You are weak. We are strong. There are no friendly relations between weak and strong." "We disagree," Chen said calmly. "We believe all intelligent life has value. We would like to trade with you, share knowledge, and live in peace." "You will share everything," Vex said. "When we conquer your world." Chen's face remained calm, but her voice became serious. "Commander, I must give you an official warning from the government of Earth. Humanity seeks peace with all civilizations. We offer friendship and cooperation. However, we will defend ourselves if attacked. We strongly advise against any aggressive action toward our species or our territories." The silence lasted for several seconds. Then Vex began to laugh. "It was a harsh, ugly sound. You warn us? You tiny, weak creatures warn the Nigma Empire?" Vex's laughter grew louder. "You have 2,000 ships. We have 2 million. You have 1 world. We rule 300 systems. And you warn us?" "Yes," Chen said simply. "We warn you. Your warning is noted and ignored," Vex said. "Now you will come aboard our ship. You will be our guests until we decide what to do with you." "And if we refuse?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "Then you will be our dead guests instead of our living guests. Choose quickly." Chen looked at her crew. They were all brave people who knew this mission might not end well. She nodded slowly. "We will come aboard your ship," she said. "But remember our warning. Humanity protects its own." An hour later, the human delegation stood in the Nigma ship's cargo bay. The ceiling was so high they could barely see it. Nigma soldiers surrounded them, weapons ready. Each soldier was twice as tall as the tallest human, and armed with energy weapons that glowed with deadly light. Commander Vex walked among the humans like a giant among children. He stopped in front of Chen. "So small," he said, "so weak. How did your species even survive long enough to build spaceships?" "We survived because we're stubborn. Chen said. And because we help each other. Stubborn? Vex seemed to find this funny. Stubbornness will not help you when our fleets reach your world. Perhaps not, Chen said. But it might surprise you. The humans were taken to holding cells deep in the ship. The cells were clean but obviously built for prisoners. As the doors closed, Chen called out to Vex. Commander, I gave you a fair warning. I hope your Emperor listens to wisdom before it's too late. Vex stopped at the door and turned back. Little human, my Emperor has conquered more worlds than your species has years of history. Your Earth will be just another number in our records. Maybe, Chen said quietly. Or maybe your empire is about to learn why humans survived when bigger. Stronger species went extinct that night. As the human prisoners tried to sleep in their cells, Commander Vex sent a message to his Emperor. The message was simple. Humans captured. Species appears weak and defenseless. Request permission to begin invasion of their home system. The Emperor's reply came back within hours. Permission granted. Send the first, second, and third fleets. Make examples of these humans. Let the galaxy know what happens to those who warn the Nigma Empire. Deep in her cell, Chen Wei sat quietly and thought about her home. Earth seemed very far away. She thought about her daughter, who was studying to be a doctor. She thought about her garden, where she grew tomatoes and roses. She thought about all the things that made humans special. The Nigma thought they knew what humans were like because they had met them for one day. They thought humans were weak because they asked for peace instead of demanding war. They thought humans were stupid because they gave warnings instead of launching surprise attacks. Chen smiled sadly in the darkness. The Nigma Empire had made the same mistake that many others had made throughout human history. They confused kindness with weakness. They confused a desire for peace with an inability to fight. Soon the Nigma would learn the difference. Soon they would understand why Chen had called her warning fair. And soon they would discover that humans had been preparing for this day for much longer than anyone could imagine. The invasion fleets were already moving toward Earth, but Earth was ready for them. Earth had been ready for 50 years. The 3 Nigma fleets appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm of metal and death. 2,000 ships of various sizes hung in the darkness between the stars. The smallest ships were still larger than anything humans had ever built. The largest were mobile cities capable of destroying planets. Admiral Korxhan commanded the invasion from his flagship, the Eternal Conqueror. The ship was 5 miles long and bristled with weapons that could turn a moon into dust. He had used these same fleets to crush the Zilani Federation, the Core Empire, and 17 other civilizations. Earth would be easy. Report, Korxhan ordered. My lord, said his tactical officer. We detect human ships throughout the system. Most are small patrol vessels. We count maybe 300 ships total. They appear to be spread thin, protecting various planets and space stations. Korxhan looked at the tactical display. Earth glowed blue and green in the center, surrounded by a few orbital stations. Other planets showed minimal activity. The humans had bases on their moon and on a red planet they called Mars, but nothing impressive. Where is their main fleet? Korxhan asked. We don't see one, my lord. It appears their entire navy is scattered in small groups. Foolish, Korxhan said. They should have concentrated their forces. Now we will destroy them piece by piece. The first target was Luna Base, humanity's military headquarters on Earth's moon. 50 Nigma ships broke off from the main fleet and moved toward the gray sphere. They expected quick victory. Admiral Sarah Voss watched them come from the command center buried deep inside Luna Base. She was a tall woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Around her, dozens of officers tracked the approaching enemy. Admiral, reported Captain Kim, her tactical officer. Nigma ships are closing on Luna Base. Estimated time to weapons range, 15 minutes. Any word from Earth Command? Voss asked. Yes, ma'am. All civilian populations are in shelters. All defense systems are active. You have full authorization to execute Scenario Omega. Voss nodded. Scenario Omega was the plan they had hoped never to use. For 50 years, humanity had prepared for this day. Ever since they first detected radio signals from aggressive alien civilizations, they had been building and planning and preparing. Signal all ships, Voss ordered. Execute Scenario Omega. Make them regret. Ignoring our warning. The first surprise came when the Nigma ships opened fire on Luna Base. Their energy beams struck the surface of the moon and seemed to disappear into nothing. The base was still there, still intact. What happened? Korxhan demanded from his command ship. Unknown, my lord. Our weapons struck the target, but there was no damage. The base appears to be shielded. Impossible. Our intelligence said humans barely had energy shield technology. Yes, my lord. But something is blocking our weapons. What the Nigma didn't know was that humans had taken a different path with defense technology. Instead of energy shields, they had built their bases inside solid rock and metal. Luna Base was carved into the moon itself, protected by miles of dense material that could absorb the energy of any weapon. The second surprise came 30 seconds later. Luna Base opened up like a flower of death. Sections of the moon's surface slid away to reveal massive railgun batteries, dozens of magnetic accelerators, each one a mile long, aimed at the approaching Nigma ships. The railguns fired chunks of metal at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The Nigma energy shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid projectiles moving at such incredible speeds. The first Nigma ship died instantly, as a tungsten rod punched through its entire length. The second ship exploded when 3 projectiles hit it at the same time. Within minutes, 30 Nigma ships were destroyed or crippled. "Retreat," Corksan ordered. "Fall back to safe distance." But as the Nigma ships tried to retreat, more surprises appeared. What they had thought were small asteroids suddenly came alive with weapons fire. Humans had been hiding ships and weapon platforms throughout the asteroid belt for decades. The rocks themselves became weapons. Human mining ships built to move asteroids pushed huge chunks of stone toward the Nigma fleet. The asteroids had been fitted with small engines and guidance systems. They were basically guided missiles the size of mountains. "Admiral," reported Captain Kim from Luna Base. "The asteroid bombardment is working. Enemy fleet is taking heavy damage." "Good," Voss replied. "Phase 2, execute." Across the solar system, humanity's real fleet began to appear. They came from hidden bases behind moons, from inside hollow asteroids, from deep space where they had been waiting silently for years. The ships didn't look impressive by Nigma standards, but they moved with purpose and precision. The human ships were smaller but faster than Nigma vessels. They used the gravity of planets to slingshot themselves to incredible speeds. A human destroyer could accelerate around Jupiter and come screaming toward an enemy ship at velocities that made it nearly impossible to hit. The real shock came when the humans revealed their true weapon philosophy. While most galactic civilizations focused on energy weapons and shields, humans had perfected kinetic warfare. They turned mass and velocity into devastating weapons. Human ships didn't try to slug it out with Nigma battleships. Instead, they fired swarms of smaller projectiles, overwhelmed enemy defenses with sheer numbers, and used hit-and-run tactics that drove Nigma commanders insane with frustration. "My lord," reported the tactical officer aboard the Eternal Conqueror, "we're losing ships faster than we can count them. The humans are using weapons we don't understand." "What kind of weapons?" Corksan demanded. "Solid projectiles, my lord, moving at extremely high speeds. Our shields can't stop them, and they're launching these projectiles from everywhere. Ships, space stations, even planets." "Planets?" "Yes, my lord. The planet they call Earth has massive railgun installations. They're shooting at our ships from the surface." Corksan stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In 6 hours of fighting, he had lost 400 ships. The humans had maybe lost 50. This was supposed to be an easy conquest of a primitive species. "Send a message to the Emperor," Corksan ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. All available fleets." "What should I tell him about the situation here?" Corksan looked at the display again. Human ships swarmed around his fleet like angry insects. Every few minutes, another Nigma ship exploded or went dark. "Tell him we underestimated the humans," Corksan said quietly. "Tell him they were ready for us." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Voss received reports from across the solar system. The Nigma invasion was stalled but not stopped. They still had over 1,500 ships and more were probably coming. "Captain Kim," she said, "signal Earth Command. Tell them Phase 3 is authorized." "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Phase 3 weapons have never been tested in actual combat." "The Nigma Empire chose to ignore our warning," Voss replied. "Now they get to see what happens when humans stop being polite." In secret facilities across Earth, technicians began preparing humanity's most dangerous weapons. Things they had hoped never to use, things that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Nigma had come expecting to fight primitives. Instead, they had found a species that had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. And the humans were just getting started. Admiral Corkshan had conquered 47 worlds in his career. He had seen every kind of space battle, every type of weapon, every form of resistance. Nothing had prepared him for fighting humans. "Status report," he ordered from the bridge of the Eternal Conqueror. "My lord, we have lost 600 ships in the past 12 hours. Human resistance is unlike anything in our databases. They don't fight like other species." Corkshan studied the tactical display. Human ships moved in patterns that made no sense. They used planets and moons as shields, accelerated to impossible speeds using gravity, and launched attacks from directions that should have been impossible. "How do they move so fast?" he asked. "Intelligence believes they're using gravitational acceleration, my lord. They swing around planets to gain speed, then coast toward targets at high velocity. By the time we detect them, they're already attacking. And their weapons? Purely kinetic, my lord. No energy beams, no plasma cannons. They shoot solid objects at extremely high speeds. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles." A new alarm sounded across the bridge. "My lord, we're detecting new contacts. Large objects approaching from the asteroid belt." Corkshan looked at the display. Dozens of massive shapes were moving toward his fleet. "They looked like cargo ships, slow and harmless. Cargo vessels?" he asked. "They appear to be mining ships, my lord, probably trying to evacuate civilian personnel. Target them. Destroy them before they escape." The Nigma ships opened fire on the approaching vessels. Energy beams struck the large ships and seemed to have little effect. The vessels kept coming, moving slowly but steadily toward the Nigma fleet. "My lord, the mining ships are not taking damage." "Impossible. Increase firepower." More Nigma ships targeted the approaching vessels. The space around them filled with deadly energy, but the ships continued their slow approach. Then the mining ships opened up. What the Nigma had thought were cargo holds were actually weapon bays. Each ship carried dozens of railgun cannons, missile launchers, and kinetic bombardment systems. The miners had been converted into weapons platforms disguised as harmless civilian vessels. The barrage was devastating. Thousands of projectiles filled space between the fleets. Nigma ships that had survived hours of careful human attacks were destroyed in minutes by the overwhelming firepower of the converted miners. "Fall back," Corkshan ordered. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." But there was no safe distance. As the Nigma ships tried to retreat, they discovered that humans had been preparing for this battle in ways they couldn't imagine. Hidden bases throughout the solar system activated. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as space debris came online. Even the planets themselves became weapons as massive railgun installations on Earth. Mars and the Moon opened fire. The real shock came when Captain Rodriguez, now serving aboard the human command ship Retribution, opened a communication channel to the Nigma fleet. "Admiral Corkshan," Rodriguez said in accented but clear Nigma language. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. We intercepted your communications. We know you've called for reinforcements." Corkshan was surprised the humans knew his name and could speak his language. "Human captain, you fight well for primitives. But reinforcements are coming. 7 full fleets. You cannot stand against the full might of the Empire." "We don't intend to stand against it," Rodriguez replied. "We intend to destroy it." Before Corkshan could respond, something impossible appeared on his sensors. Human ships were appearing throughout the solar system. Not just a few ships, but hundreds. Then thousands. Where did they come from? He demanded. "Unknown, my lord. They seem to be emerging from hiding places throughout the system. Asteroid bases, hidden facilities, even hollowed-out moons." What the Nigma were seeing was the result of 50 years of human preparation. Every asteroid belt had been turned into a fortress. Every dead moon had been hollowed out and filled with ships and weapons. Humanity had turned their entire solar system into a trap, but the greatest surprise was yet to come. Admiral Sarah Voss, now commanding the operation from a massive space station hidden behind Jupiter, activated humanity's most secret weapon. For decades, human scientists had been working on self-replicating manufacturing systems, machines that could build copies of themselves using raw materials from space. "Activate the constructor protocol," Voss ordered. Throughout the solar system, machines that had been quietly building and preparing for 50 years came fully online. Automated factories began producing ships, weapons, and ammunition at an incredible rate. Within hours, humanity's fleet began to grow exponentially. The Nigma watched in horror as human ships multiplied before their eyes. What had been 3,000 human vessels became 6,000, then 12,000, then 24,000. This is impossible, Corksan whispered. No species can build ships this quickly. My lord, reported his tactical officer. Intelligence suggests the humans have been using automated manufacturing. The ships appear to be built by machines, not biological workers. Machines building machines? Yes, my lord. And the process is accelerating. The human strategy became clear. They weren't just defending their solar system. They were demonstrating their industrial capacity, showing the Nigma Empire what humanity could accomplish when they stopped holding back. Captain Rodriguez opened another communication channel. Admiral Corksan, you should know that what you're seeing is just the beginning. Humanity has been preparing for this day since we first detected aggressive alien civilizations. We tried to warn your empire. We offered peace. You chose war instead. You cannot defeat the entire Nigma Empire, Corksan said, but his voice lacked conviction. We don't need to defeat your entire empire, Rodriguez replied. We just need to make sure you never threaten humanity again. And we've been planning exactly how to do that for a very long time. The battle turned into a massacre. Human ships, now numbering in the tens of thousands, swarmed around the remaining Nigma fleet. The automated manufacturers continued producing more ships, more weapons, more ammunition. But the most terrifying moment came when the humans revealed their final surprise. Deep space sensors detected massive objects approaching from the outer solar system. They were asteroids, but not natural ones. Humans had been moving rocks for decades, positioning them for this exact moment. The asteroids had been fitted with engines and guidance systems. They were kinetic weapons the size of mountains, moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. When they hit Nigma ships, there was nothing left but expanding clouds of gas and debris. My lord, his tactical officer reported, we have lost 90% of our fleet. Recommend immediate withdrawal. Corksan looked at what remained of his once mighty invasion force. Less than 200 ships survived out of more than 2,000. The humans had destroyed his fleet in 18 hours. Signal retreat, he ordered. All remaining ships jumped to hyperspace immediately. My lord, the humans are jamming our communications. Some ships may not receive the order. Then we save who we can. As the surviving Nigma ships prepared to flee, Captain Rodriguez sent one final message. Admiral Corksan, you will return to your emperor with this message. Humanity offered peace. You chose war. This is the result. If your empire sends more fleets, we will destroy them too. And then we will come to your worlds. We gave you fair warning. Remember it. The last Nigma ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying news of their defeat back to the Empire. Behind them, the human fleet continued to grow as automated factories worked around the clock. But Admiral Voss wasn't finished. As she watched the enemy retreat, she activated one more protocol. Throughout human space, ships began preparing for their own journey to hyperspace. The humans had won the battle for Earth. Now it was time to make sure the Nigma Empire never threatened anyone again. Emperor Zaxthul received the news of the fleet's destruction in his throne room on the capital world of Nigma Prime. Admiral Corksan knelt before him, one of only a few hundred survivors from the entire invasion force. Explain this disaster, the Emperor commanded. Corksan kept his eyes fixed on the floor. My lord, the humans were not what they appeared to be. They had prepared for our attack. Their entire solar system was a trap. Prepared how? They are primitives with barely any technology. No, my lord. They are not primitives. They have weapons we have never seen, ships that build themselves, machines that create other machines. They turned asteroids into weapons and planets into fortresses. The Emperor's forearms trembled with rage. You lost 2,000 ships to a species with barely any space fleet? They have far more than we thought, my lord. By the end of the battle, they had tens of thousands of ships, and more being built every hour. Impossible. My lord, I saw it with my own eyes. They have technology that can manufacture entire fleets in days, and their weapons. Corksan paused, remembering the destruction. They don't use energy weapons like civilized species. They shoot rocks and metal at incredible speeds. Our shields are useless against them. The Emperor stood and walked to a massive window overlooking his capital city. Millions of Nigma lived in the sprawling metropolis below. The Empire controlled 300 star systems and over 1,000 worlds. How could one small species threaten all of that? Very well, the Emperor said finally. We will gather the full Imperial fleet, every ship from every sector. We will crush these humans completely. My lord, Korksan said carefully. Perhaps we should consider the human warning. They offered peace. Maybe we could negotiate. Negotiate? The Emperor roared. The Nigma Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. We will destroy every human world, enslave every human survivor, and erase their species from existence. But even as the Emperor spoke, human ships were already moving through hyperspace toward Nigma territory. Admiral Sarah Voss commanded the operation from her flagship, the Nemesis. Around her, 1,000 human ships moved through the strange dimension of hyperspace. But these weren't normal warships. They were something far more dangerous. Admiral, reported Commander Jackson, we're approaching the first target system, Nigma Colony World designated NK-47. Any sign of enemy forces? Negative, ma'am. The system appears lightly defended. 3 orbital stations and maybe 50 patrol ships. Good. Deploy the packages. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the NK-47 system. They didn't attack the Nigma defenses. Instead, they launched thousands of small containers toward the inhabited worlds. The containers were too small for the Nigma sensors to track individually. They fell through planetary atmospheres like meteors and landed across continents. Most of them landed in empty areas, away from cities and populated regions. When the containers opened, they released something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The gray goo had been humanity's most feared theoretical weapon for over a century, self-replicating nanobots that could break down any material and use it to build more copies of themselves. Human scientists had perfected the technology decades ago but hoped never to use it. The nanobots were programmed with specific targets: Nigma military equipment, weapon systems, and spacecraft. They would ignore civilian infrastructure and biological life forms. But anything made of metal or advanced materials would be consumed and converted into more nanobots. Within hours, the Nigma defenses in the NK-47 system simply vanished. Spaceships dissolved into clouds of gray dust. Weapon platforms crumbled into nothing. Military bases became empty shells as their equipment was consumed from the inside out. The Nigma colonists watched in horror as their defenses disappeared. They sent desperate messages to the imperial capital, but by then it was too late. Human ships appeared in 12 more Nigma systems within the next week. Each time the gray goo was deployed, each time, Nigma military forces simply ceased to exist. Emperor Zaxthel received reports of the attacks with growing panic. How are they doing this? He demanded. Unknown, my lord, reported his chief scientist. Our colonies report that their defenses are being destroyed by some kind of dissolving force. Metal turns to dust, weapon systems stop working, ships fall apart. What about our fleet assembly? Are the reinforcements ready? My lord, we have a problem. The shipyards in the Korlek system have gone dark. We've lost contact with 3 major fleet bases. The Emperor felt cold fear for the first time in his long life. Show me. The tactical display revealed the scope of the disaster. 13 Nigma systems had been hit by human attacks. In each case, every military installation had been destroyed without any sign of conventional battle damage. My lord, said Admiral Vex, who had been promoted after Korksan's disgrace, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Put it through. The hologram of Admiral Sarah Voss appeared in the throne room. She looked calm and professional, but her eyes were cold as space. Emperor Zaxthel, she said, I am Admiral Voss of the Human Defense Force. You have seen what happens to your military installations when you threaten humanity. This can end in one of 2 ways. How dare you, the Emperor began. You can surrender unconditionally, Voss continued, ignoring the interruption. Release all enslaved species in your territory. Disband your military forces. Submit to human oversight. Or you can continue fighting, and we will destroy every military asset your empire possesses. We have millions of ships, the Emperor shouted. Thousands of worlds. Yes, Voss said calmly. And we have weapons you can't defend against. We've been developing these technologies for 50 years. Ever since we detected your empire's expansion, we hoped never to use them. You forced our hand. The transmission ended, leaving the throne room in silence. Over the next month, human attacks continued across Nigma space, but they weren't random. The humans targeted specific worlds, military shipyards, weapon manufacturing centers, training facilities, and fleet bases. The attacks followed the same pattern. Human ships would appear, deploy their mysterious weapons, and leave. Within hours, every piece of military equipment in the system would be destroyed. But civilian populations were left unharmed. The Nigma Empire, which had stood for 3,000 years, began to collapse from within. Without their military to enforce control, enslaved species started rebelling. Conquered worlds declared independence. The great fleets that had terrorized the galaxy were reduced to scrap metal by invisible attackers. Emperor Zaxthul sat alone in his throne room, staring at reports of another system lost to the humans. His empire was crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. A new transmission arrived from Admiral Voss. "Emperor," she said, "we've destroyed 60% of your military capability. Your enslaved species are declaring independence. Your fleets are scattered and powerless. You have one chance left to end this peacefully. Surrender now, and we'll allow your species to survive on a single world under human supervision. Continue fighting and we'll reduce your empire to dust." The Emperor looked around his empty throne room. Most of his advisors had fled to distant worlds, hoping to escape the human advance. His mighty empire was dying, killed by a species he had dismissed as primitive. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Nigma Empire was truly afraid, and the humans weren't finished yet. The end came not with a great battle, but with a simple message. Emperor Zaxthul stood in what remained of his throne room on Nigma Prime. Half the palace had been evacuated. His once mighty empire controlled fewer than 50 systems, down from 300. Rebellions raged across former Nigma territory as enslaved species fought for their freedom. The message arrived on a simple data pad, carried by one of his few remaining servants. From Admiral Sarah Voss, Human Defense Force, to Emperor Zaxthul of the former Nigma Empire. "You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your homeworld's defenses and the dissolution of your government. This is your final warning." The Emperor crushed the datapad in his massive hands. Final warning, the same words the human ambassador had used months ago when this nightmare began. "Sire," said Admiral Vex, one of the few officers still loyal to the throne, "perhaps we should consider their terms." "Never," the Emperor snarled. "The Nigma Empire will not bow to primitive aliens. Sire, they've destroyed 90% of our fleet. 80% of our worlds have declared independence. Our military is still the strongest in the galaxy." Vex said nothing. They both knew it was a lie. The human attacks had been surgical and devastating. Every major shipyard was gone. Every fleet base had been reduced to scrap metal. The great Nigma war machine had been dismantled piece by piece. The humans had kept their promise. They had given warnings, offered peace, and when rejected, had systematically destroyed everything that made the Empire dangerous. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Voss received confirmation that her ultimatum had been delivered. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by displays showing the state of former Nigma territory. "Admiral," reported Commander Jackson, "we're getting surrender messages from 47 Nigma systems. Local governors are laying down arms and requesting terms. What about the Emperor?" No response from Nigma Prime. Voss nodded. She had expected this. Tyrants rarely surrendered willingly. "Signal the fleet. Begin final phase operations." Across human space, the most powerful fleet in galactic history prepared for its last mission. 15,000 ships, all built in the last 6 months by humanity's automated factories. Each ship carried weapons that could crack planets or technologies that could dissolve entire fleets. But the most important ships were the smallest ones. Scout vessels carrying a cargo more valuable than any weapon. The freed prisoners from human diplomatic missions. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the medical bay of the scout ship Redemption. Finally free after months of captivity, she was thinner than before, marked by her time in Nigma prisons, but her spirit was unbroken. "Ambassador," said Captain Park, the ship's commander, "we'll be at Earth in 6 hours. The medical team says you're in good health considering what you've been through." "Thank you, Captain. But I want to see this finished first." "Ma'am?" Chen looked out at the stars through the medical bay window. "The Nigma Empire chose to ignore our warning. They chose to enslave our people. They chose war over peace. I want to see how it ends." The human fleet arrived at Nigma Prime to find the system heavily defended. The Emperor had gathered every remaining ship, every surviving weapon platform, every functional defense satellite. Over 5,000 Nigma vessels surrounded their homeworld. It was still not enough. The humans deployed their gray goo weapons for the last time. Within 6 hours, the entire Nigma defense network simply ceased to exist. Ships became clouds of metallic dust. Space stations crumbled into nothingness. The orbital fortresses that had protected Nigma Prime for 1,000 years were gone. Emperor Zaxthul watched from his throne room as his last defenses vanished. His hand shook as he activated the communication system. "Human fleet," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is Emperor Zaxthul. I surrender unconditionally." Admiral Voss appeared on his screen within minutes. Behind her, Chen Wei stood quietly, watching the alien who had ordered her imprisonment. "Emperor," Voss said, "you will order all remaining Nigma forces to stand down immediately. You will release all prisoners and enslaved populations. You will provide complete records of your military assets and colonial holdings." "And then?" the Emperor asked. "Then your species will be relocated to a single agricultural world under human supervision. You will have no military forces, no weapons of mass destruction, no ability to threaten other species ever again. You would exile us to one world? We who ruled 300 systems?" Chen stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Your empire had 3,000 years to learn wisdom. 3,000 years to choose cooperation over conquest. You chose slavery and war instead. This is the consequence." The Emperor looked at the small human woman who had given him fair warning so long ago. "What of my people? The billions of innocent Nigma civilians? They will be cared for," Voss said. "Fed, housed, protected. But never again will they have the power to enslave other species." The Emperor's head bowed in defeat. "I understand. Good, you have 24 hours to gather your personal possessions. Transport ships will arrive to relocate your population. Your homeworld will become a memorial to the species you enslaved." As the communication ended, Chen looked out at Nigma Prime through the ship's viewports. The planet looked peaceful from space, its purple oceans and green continents hiding the truth of the Empire's cruelty. "Ambassador," Captain Park asked, "how do you feel about the victory?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "It's not a victory, Captain. It's justice. And it's a warning to the rest of the galaxy." Over the following months, human ships appeared throughout former Nigma territory, but they weren't conquest fleets. They were liberation forces, helping enslaved species rebuild their worlds and establish new governments. The Zilani, who had been conquered 200 years ago, wept when human ships arrived to remove their Nigma overseers. The core people, enslaved for even longer, celebrated in the streets when they learned they were free. Hundreds of species that had lived under Nigma rule for generations suddenly found themselves independent. Some adapted quickly, others needed help learning how to govern themselves again. Humanity provided that help willingly, but with conditions. Any species that wanted human assistance had to agree to basic principles. No slavery, no conquest of other worlds, no development of weapons of mass destruction. Most agreed readily. A few refused and were left to manage on their own. The galaxy watched nervously as humanity dismantled the greatest empire it had ever known. Other major powers sent diplomatic messages expressing friendship and desire for peaceful relations. The hegemony of suns, which controlled 100 star systems, immediately offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The Crystal Syndicate sent gifts and promises of eternal friendship. Even the mysterious void dwellers who rarely contacted other species sent messages of respect. Everyone had gotten the message. Humanity was not to be threatened. 6 months after the fall of the Empire, Ambassador Chen Wei stood in a garden on the new Nigma homeworld. It was a pleasant place with rolling hills and clear streams. The former emperor worked quietly nearby, tending to crops with his own hands for the first time in his life. "Do you regret it?" Chen asked him. Zaxthul looked up from the plants he was nurturing. His hands were dirty with soil, his royal robes replaced with simple farming clothes. "Every day," he said quietly. "My people suffer because of my pride. Billions of innocents pay for my mistakes. Your people are fed, housed, and safe," Chen pointed out. "They're learning new skills, new ways to live without conquest. But they are prisoners." "No," Chen said firmly. "They are students, learning what my species learned long ago, that cooperation is stronger than conquest, that peace is more valuable than power." The former emperor looked at the small human woman who had warned him so long ago. "Will humanity ever trust us again?" "That depends on you," Chen said. Your great-grandchildren might prove worthy of that trust. Or they might repeat your mistakes. The choice is theirs. As Chen walked away, she thought about the message that had gone out to every corner of the galaxy. It was simple and clear. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence with all intelligent species. We offer friendship, trade, and mutual assistance to any civilization that respects the rights of others. We will defend ourselves and our allies against any threat. We gave the Nigma Empire fair warning. They chose to ignore it. Let their fate remind the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises, both peaceful and protective. The message was signed by every human government and transmitted to every known civilization. The galaxy listened, and it remembered. And in the ruins of what had once been the greatest empire in known space, former slaves built new worlds where freedom rang louder than the chains that had once bound them. Humanity had kept its word. They had warned the Nigma Empire not to mess with humans. Now the empire was gone and the galaxy was a safer place for everyone.